Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag-and-drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
The Twilight Saga, Breaking Dawn, Part 2 is over. Jacob, put your clothes on.
I've had a bad habit of underestimating you. Every obstacle you faced, I think you couldn't overcome it. And you just did.
I didn't expect you to seem so... you?
My time as a human was over. But I never felt more alive. I thought we would be safe forever. But forever isn't as long as I'd hoped.
I have to report a crime. The Cullens, they've done something terrible.
Volturi thinks Renee's made an immortal child.
She was born, not bitten. She grows every single day.
Oh my.
Creating an immortal child has long been outlawed and is met with the severest form of punishment. Death.
What is it, Alice?
Volturi, they're coming for us.
Andy, it's Twilight.
Twilight!
This is it. This is the end. This is the end of Twilight.
Oh, it's the end of the saga, the end of an era.
We are saga-free, and moving into the future. And this was the one that I hadn't seen it before, and I had been warned about the baby. And now I've seen the baby.
It's the baby, it's the little girl, it's
It's
every stage.
Yes, it is. It's
every stage of Renesmee. Until the very end when they say, you know what, she's hit that age where she's aged into her CG, I think is what they said. Because by the end, it's just Mackenzie Foy. And I was like, oh, Interstellar, there you are.
Yeah.
Hey, little Murph.
Little Murph. That's right. Which was fine.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, so we'll get into it. But this is end. This is the last one. This is part 2 of Breaking Dawn. Just as a gut check, did you like it? Did you love it? Are you a real Twilight head now?
I don't think I will ever be a real Twilight head. I don't think that's possible. But I will say, again, we talked about this a little bit last week in our conversation about Bill Condon and the way that he felt like in the last film. It feels like he is latching on a little bit to that camp that had been in it at the start when Catherine Hardwicke kicked things off. It felt a little bit like that. And this film felt like he went whole hog, had a ton of fun with it, allowed everybody else to have fun with it. I had the best time with this film of all 5.
Like, on what scale?
Well, it still is on a fairly low scale. You know, I mean, I think if memory serves, the first film thus far, Twilight, has been my highest rank of the bunch, and I think it was at a 2.5. And
okay.
So
this one could be a 2.5 or better. What you're saying?
It could be
2.5 or 5.
Well, let's not tempt people with too dark of a future. No, it's not going to be quite that big. Actually, I think I stayed at 2 for Twilight. So I don't think anything's been over 2 hearts, but I liked it.
Okay.
2 hearts, 2 stars with a heart for Twilight. So, you know, that's where we started.
So we're on that road is what you're saying. Okay. All right. That's very interesting.
We're on that road.
Very interesting. So on a scale of 1 to 2, this one's fairly high.
On a scale of 1 to 2, this is at the top.
Okay. There are just things about this. There are some tropes in this in this movie that bug me that are not exclusive to Twilight. They are, and so I struggle with a couple of things. The baby I have trouble with, but overall this was. I think I agree with you that this was the one that was the most fun. Like the payoff of having her, Bella, finally being a vampire and ending up being kind of a badass vampire in the scope of these movies makes this one stand out to me. I think this is, I think it was fun. I like her being a vampire. I've been waiting for it for a lot of movies. And the fact that we have a whole movie where she doesn't whine about wanting to be turned into a vampire is a real win.
That is true. She didn't have to deal with that. She got to celebrate the joys of being a vampire, like beating Emmett at arm wrestling, things like that. It's just like, okay, well, they're having fun. It's goofy, whatever we're doing here. I enjoy enough what they're bringing. And honestly, this is the one that gives us the most Michael Sheen, who clearly is having a ball with this movie. I mean, some of the things that come out of his mouth are so over the top and just crazy. Like when Maggie Grace's character, Irina, goes and talks to them and they're having that conversation. I can't remember exactly what it is, but there's something that he said where it just like he squealed like with delight in some form. It was just, It was so funny. I'm like, clearly this is a guy who understands what they're doing and is having a great time with this movie. And there was so much of him, especially as we get to the climax of the film, when we get the big standoff in the baseball field. I was there for it. Like everything with him, I was totally down for. So the fact that we get so much him really helped. Plus we have Lee Pace, we have Rami Malek, like we have new faces in this that I like, that do good things. And I think genuinely they're doing good work in this film. Like, in fact, I'd argue both Lee Pace and Rami Malek are both given more to do than Kellen Lutz ever has been given to do in this film. Yet Kellen Lutz seems to get nominated for, I can't remember what, scene stealer of the whatever that category that came as the Teen Choice Awards. Is this we'll talk about that when we get there. But yes, scene stealer is what I think he's been nominated for every time. And barely does anything. Like, he never even got a backstory like we got with Jasper and Rosalie. Was that the other one we got the backstory with?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
right.
So
that's really funny. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. So I think there's a lot for it, and I think we should dig in.
Let's do it. All right. Well, when this movie came out, like before, it was rated PG-13. And this time it was for sequences of violence, including disturbing images, some sensuality, and partial nudity.
I look at you, I see a little clearer. Through the years and every change, we'll put up a fight, 'cause you're my love, my everything. You are my life.
So, big questions, Andy.
Big questions.
How about those horny vampires? Really celebrating the horny vampires, but it's the other side of the horny vampires. So last time we had horny vampires that were just married, and now she is
no. We had horny vampire and horny human who were just married.
No, you're right. Yeah, and the horny human was definitely more horny. I mean, in terms of the horny scale.
Yeah, although he was
not bad.
He had to restrain himself because he was so horny.
Yeah,
that he was still breaking things and bruising her,
which was great. Okay,
let's start there, because I was a little confused by, he was so horny. He was such a badass in bed that when they were down on the little island getaway off the coast of Brazil, he was destroying the house. Like, that's how horny he was. They go to bed in this movie in their new house, and it's like the gentlest sex ever. And I'm like, this house should be completely destroyed. She is now a vampire, and clearly she's in her newborn phase where she's extra strong. I mean, she practically crushed him when she hugged him. Why is suddenly now the sex is so gentle and calm?
I can tell you exactly why, Andy, because my headcanon says that when the vampires, who, let's just say, all the other vampire couples live in one house, and they decided somehow that Bella and Arpats get to have their own cottage in the woods, their little gingerbread house.
Theory on that. I'll return to that.
What's that? Oh, okay. All right. Well, I think when they had that house built, they had it reinforced with like steel and carbon fiber, because they're vampires and they know going in the bed has to be reinforced. Everything has to be reinforced. So I went ahead and rewrote that bit. I think that would have been great to have the construction project part. Like, oh, what are we going to do? They're vampires. They're going to be having a lot of vampire sex, and they could break this stuff. So we have to make it double super reinforced.
Double super triple.
Yeah.
My theory with that, and it's because Edward calls out the fact that when, I can't remember, was it with Jasper and Alice when they first got together, that no one could be around them for like a decade, as he said, because they were so horned up all the time. So this is my theory, is that the vampires know how ridiculously horny they're going to be, and so are kind of putting Edward and Bella away. It's like their little sex house. Like, you go over there for the next decade until you've settled down. Then we can all come back and live together. That was my theory.
That is actually, I'll buy that. That's good. I like it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Strike one. Check one.
Okay. Check one. So they have their little house, and now they're married, and so they can have sensual like sex. We're celebrating married people sex is what we're doing.
So this is no longer honeymoon crazy pounding sex. This is what you're saying is now that they're married, it's okay to be a little more sensual and take things slow.
I think take it slow. Take it slow. That's what I'm saying. Maybe it's okay. Or maybe, Andy, maybe it's like everything else in this movie when they go in vampire mode, and what they're seeing is slow motion sex. But if we were watching like really creepy, like through a window, it would be fast motion.
It would be like when they're running and suddenly it goes into Bella speed, and she's just like, running nice and slowly through the forest. Okay.
They're having sex, but also looking out the window and watching like flowers bloom and spiders cast their webs. That's amazing.
Whatever. Stephenie Meyer clearly makes rules and breaks rules, and it gets to be a little ridiculous. And it is what it is. I don't mind so much. It is what it is. And in terms of, again, this one being kind of the a return to a little bit more of that campy form, I don't mind so much. I think I would have appreciated it if at least something was broken when they got up.
Yeah, right. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Renesmee. Renesmee is a central piece of the film. And so we have the three sort of chapters of Renesmee.
Can we call her Nessie?
You nickname the daughter after the Loch Ness Monster? Was that one of the funniest lines ever? Funniest lines delivered seriously in this movie, and there are a lot of them.
Yeah. Let's just call her Nessie, because one, Renesmee is the stupidest name.
So stupid.
And two, it calls out one of the goofiest, as you just said, one of the goofiest, yet
I cannot
meant to be serious.
That name, I can't think of can you think of another movie name that is so ridiculous, like ridiculously bad? Like some names are ridiculous, but they're character names. Like they're great. But this one is it's just a bad name. Is there somebody, like, I'm sorry, I guess I have to to roll this back a little bit, that we have a name of a person that might exist in the real world, especially post-Twilight. Like, somebody named their baby Renesmee. You know they did.
Oh, I'm sure. In fact, I'm going to go, we're going to live do this. What is the baby name website? Nameberry.com. Let's go to Nameberry. Popular baby names. I want to search for Renesmee.
While you're doing this, so Brian just posted in the chat room. So if you'd like to join us in the chat room for our live streams, just become a member at thenextreel.com/membership. And you can join us for our live streams. And Brian just helped me visualize this by posting the 25 worst movie character names ever. And Renesmee Cullen is number one.
Wow.
But
really?
that's in a list of Dr. Christmas Jones, Cole Trickle from Days of Thunder, Mutt Williams in Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Don't forget Flipper Purify in Jungle Fever, or Bitsy Bloom in The Life of David Gale.
Oh,
These are amazing.
Bitsy Bloom.
Helen Shivers in I Know What You Did Last Summer. Oh, my God. Oh, this is your favorite one, Juno McGuff from Juno.
Was that their last name?
Yeah. Yeah.
Really?
Oh, Forrest Gump is on this list. Suddenly, come on. Forrest Gump is one of the best movie names of all time.
Here you go. Renesmee. It's not super popular. In 2022, it's up. Actually, 279 spots from 2021. It is now in spot 976. Okay. So since 2006, was probably around when the book came out, it has had a definite increase in popularity to the point where now in 2022, 154 babies per million have been named Renesmee.
I feel for the people who are named after this particular character in this movie. I hope that everything is fine for you, but I wonder what the percentage of these people who go by Renee or Esme in there,
or Nessie
or Net. Please tell me that percentage is very low.
All right. Well, anyway, you brought up Renesmee. We're talking about her name, but really, it's because for some reason in this film they decided to, for most of her performance, to CG the face onto the performer.
Yeah. They sure did. And that was very distracting, I found. I had a hard time getting over that. Can you talk about your reaction to CG Baby?
It was all pretty much laughing every time Renesmee was on screen, starting with, I think the first time it's when Bella comes and meets Renesmee after waking up the vampire and being all super duper. and then she gets pissed that Jacob, blah, blah, blah. So it's that whole scene. That's the first time. And every time we see the baby's face, it just like, it never is quite lining up. Like the eyes look slightly too far to the left or too far to the right.
Definitely
like
tilted off axis funny.
Yeah.
That I struggled with.
It's very funky. And that definitely is happening when Charlie comes over and gets to meet Renesmee. And it continues as she is growing up. We see that kind of the montage of her growing. And I think the next time it's when she's catching snowflakes. And in that scene, like as she's talking, I'm like, why are they CGing this face on a child? And I mean, clearly what they were doing is they were doing probably some form of motion cap with Mackenzie Foy and putting it onto a younger actress so that they could still have kind of that similar face on a kid. But it always ended up looking really freaky. Like I had such a hard time watching that kid, and it drove me nuts having to look at it. And the fact that they chose to do it this way, it's just like, I mean, I get it. They're trying to create some weird consistency from baby all the way to Mackenzie Foy, but it just created this freaky thing that just never should have been in existence.
It was like a vampire, a monster that should have been staked out of existence.
Yes.
That is exactly the problem that we had with it. It is also central to the plot of the movie because of Irina, Maggie Grace, who sees said baby floating in the air catching snowflakes and stuff and thinks that it is an immortal child. Now, apparently, immortal children, we learn in this movie, are spoiled, rotten baby brat vampires who were made vampires way too young and never control themselves and wipe out entire villages. That the extent of your understanding of immortal vampires?
Well, yeah, and I think that really, it does kind of work in vampire lore anyway. I mean, we saw similar behavior in Kristen
Dunst
Kirsten Dunst, in Interview with the Vampire, right? So I think that, I mean, it absolutely makes sense. In the scope of vampire rules that we're getting, this is something that I'm like, okay, I can really buy into that one. That really makes sense.
Oh, 100%. And it's one of the first times in the series that we have some vampire lore that is consistent with lore that we have in other movies,
right.
which is an awesome win in this movie because it does give me back some context that this is still a vampire movie, not just a teen vampire Dawson's Creek. And so I like that. I like that a lot. Now, Renesmee, of course, is not a vampire baby. Renesmee is a different thing. So we spend a little time looking at the problems of vampire babies. Irina goes to the Volturi and says, hey, we got a vampire baby on our hand. It's not vampire. It's vampire child, but I like saying vampire baby more.
Yeah.
So we've got a vampire baby on our hand, and we need to snuff it out. And that gets the Volturi interested. And then we start what I like to call the Pokemon act of this movie. Got to catch them all. We go out to get our witnesses.
Right.
Because the witnesses have to stand up and say, oh, no, this is not a vampire baby. This is a hybrid child. This is some other new problem that we have to deal with. Not what you think it is. And Maggie Grace, you should be really, really embarrassed.
The problem, one of the issues that I have with this film, and in general, I think, and it's actually not just this film, but so many films where people refuse to actually just have conversations with each other. Like this film, this series is notorious. We've talked about that a lot over in Marvel Movie Minute with, some of the way that some of the heroes behave with each other. It's like, if you just talk to each other, then you get through all this without having to fight each other. It's very frustrating. And in this film, it's like, why did Irina have to run off like a crazy woman and go dive in the ocean in her heavy coat and to swim away? Like, that was ridiculous. Why don't
one of the funniest moments of the movie, Andy? She's wearing the sheepskin coat. What is she doing jumping in the water?
Straight to the bottom.
How did she get there if she swam and not be dripping wet standing on that rock? Like, what
she
happened?
Swam away. Maybe she walked.
Was she just wandering the woods?
She walked down from Denali.
Denali.
They're the Denali family. I know,
but where is
this
Denali?
was the same thing my wife and I, it's up in Alaska. This is the same thing my wife and I, when Jacob and Bella and all of them are driving up there, they're like, my wife's like, why are they driving? It's like, one, they could fly. It's a lot faster. They have their own private jets. Two, they could also run. Like, why are they just driving up there? It just seems so casual and laid back if they're hurried trying to get these people. But
that's crazy.
But regardless, the point is, Irina could have just had a conversation with Bella instead of running away like a freako. And same thing later in the film. Like, there are so many times these characters could have figured things out if they had just talked about it instead of just like walking away or just fighting. Like, when they show up at the Denali family's house and they see the kid, like, their first reaction is to just attack instead of like, hey, wait a minute, what's going on here? I don't know. It's just, so frustrating.
But does that, I mean, that fits so clearly into the overall vibe of all of these movies. Like, if you take away the don't talk, just attack or run away thing from these movies, then you have no central conflict, right? It doesn't exist. And so the movies need this kind of flagrant disregard for conversation in order to work.
That is true.
Which is fine. I mean, it's fine. I find it frustrating. I can see how a lot of people wouldn't. I can see how a lot of people would, who are really into the movie, would see this and think, oh, okay, this is just perfect because I love the drama and I need this to happen to fulfill my mental model of the movie. And I have no judgment against that because this is first and foremost a romance action movie and it's great. It's fine. It fits that mold. It's not made for me, but I get it.
Yeah.
But that does lead to the collection sequence, right? Because they have to have witnesses. And it turns out both sides need witnesses. And the witnesses are the other vampires who know the truth and the vampires who think they know the truth. And they have to stand up against each other. But you'd think it leads to some sort of trial or discussion, that witnesses are going to stand up and have a conversation. And I think Carlisle thinks that's what's going to happen. But it's not really the plan, because again, vampires don't talk, they fight, and so we need them to fight.
And they say that pretty much, right?
Yeah,
I mean, they say that Arrow notoriously, even when people present the facts to him, he kills them anyway. Like, he goes through with his decision, what he's already decided, he does it anyway, because that's the way he operates. And that's pretty much the way that, I guess, that they're expecting that, right? That was that whole setup that we have.
Yeah. So it's and so that's what we get. But the difference is Alice had taken herself off the board for a long time, and she shows up.
Yeah, she and Jasper, right? Yes.
And then we have the setup. This is where I start to have a little bit of a problem with the fork, where in one head I'm watching this movie and I really like the big final action scene. We have a lot of wolves, great fur, and lots of fighty fight with all of the superhero vampires who each have their own unique ability now that they've really heavied up on. Vampires have crazy abilities. They sure do. And so we see the fight play out, which I think it's fun. I think there's some really good surprises, when vampires get killed. Like, we really get to feel, oh God, that's a bold move to show us, Carlisle getting his back broken. Like, that's big.
Beheaded. Yeah.
Beheaded, right. He gets his head knocked off. So all of that, I think, is fun, bold, brave storytelling and filmmaking.
Okay. Do you want me to respond to that, or are you going to do your other fork?
Go ahead. Why don't you go ahead and respond so far?
Okay. I loved the fight. I had so much fun. I was laughing hysterically because it was so goofy. The fact that, like, the way to kill the vampires is to pop their heads off. And it was like they should have had a toy line of the figures for all of the kids to play with, just like we did when we were kids, where the heads just pop off. Yeah. Because, like, that's
like if you squeeze them.
Yeah, like if you squeeze it, the head pops off. Like, it was so funny just watching them all get their heads popped off. Like, I was laughing hysterically because it was so goofy seeing this. I was a little disappointed we didn't get any of the Transformer breakdowns that we had in Eclipse, when they'd smash each other and they'd explode into silver bits.
I
was a little disappointed with that. But I love the fact that for the vampires, it was all like, let's just keep ripping heads off. I was laughing hysterically. Plus, when Rami Malek like splits the earth open, we have
I know.
like a lava pit in the bottom that they're all throwing each other into.
That magma is deceptively close to the crust of the earth, Andy. Never forget.
Yes, right.
If we learn nothing from Rami Malek.
You do live right on the crust where you are. So so I don't know. I found it to be funny. Even the powers, like I was laughing at, like Bella in no time develops this power to expand her shield to protect people from, from people like Dakota Fanning, whose power, as we've talked about before, is causing pain on people. And I don't know, it was her brother, Cameron Bright, who could, I don't know, it was like he was making black clouds of paralyzation or something.
He's the one who can remove your senses. He can remove your sight, hearing, smell, taste with his little cloud fingers.
Yeah. And then, of course, on the good guys' side, you have the embarrassingly dressed Brazilian tribal women.
Oh, my God.
One of whom can make you see something totally different, like you're in the forest or you can't see anything or whatever. And so it was, I don't know. I just thought it was all really funny, and I had a great time with everything involved in the fight. It was no holds barred. Carlisle gets beheaded. Jasper gets beheaded. It was just like, it was a free for all, and I was here for it. All the way down to the final fight between Bella, Edward, and Aro. Like that was actually a really fun fight between the three of them.
Yes, I totally agree. Yeah.
And the other two, I don't know what you call the three heads of the Volturi. It was Aro, Caius, and Marcus, I think, were the three.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed the way that they did all of that with all of them. They were clearly having fun designing the fight to be really big and over the top.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So where do you stand on the Newhart ending? The fact that we find out it was all a dream vision.
I didn't care. When it happened, I'm like, oh, of course we're doing this. This is Stephenie Meyer. We don't need to end the movie in violence.
Yeah.
Like I felt like it was the safest of safe endings for someone like her to write into a novel that made everything okay. Like it's all just in your head, and now we can talk it out, and now you know what the future holds, and everything will be okay. It was super safe, but it wasn't handled in a way that I felt it didn't work. I actually thought, I'm like, you know what? I can buy into this, and I'm okay.
I like the excuse for a big fight. I love that we get to have it. And I understand the intention behind the "it was all a dream" model. It just cements why this movie wasn't made for me, because they built up a lot of intensity and a lot of the being able to say, hey, audience, you're going to grieve. This is the fourth part of this major thing, or the fifth movie, and you're going to now feel some things. And it's because we've had characters that you've been around all along, and we're going to lose them. They're going to die. And when everybody just sort of, it's like, oh, thank God, now I've seen the truth and we've talked it out and everything's fine. We're going to walk away. There will be no battle today. I was like, you just sucked all the intensity out of the final act. And I didn't care for it. And that's fine. I feel like I tend to think it was all a dream. Like, there are some people who have real problems with time travel in movies because it sets up no rules. For me, the "it was all a dream" trope is problematic. I just don't like it at all. Like, I don't care for it.
Clearly, it's one of those tropes that is by nature a default problem, because once it's been done, it becomes an easy out for anything that follows it.
Yes.
And that's the issue with it as a trope. And there are times where you could say it works better than others. Like, I think Jacob's Ladder is a great example of it working really well. But, there are issues where it does become an easy way out for so many things. And that is a danger of it. But I can't say it wasn't set up in this. We have Alice who can see the future. We have Aro who can touch your hand and see what you're seeing. And so the fact that the two of them come together and he sees the future that she has seen, it's there, it's set up. So because of that, I'm like, well, I can't argue that it wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, it's just the fact that there's like it totally absolves the third act of stakes. Like there's nothing to lose at this point. We've seen this massive action sequence that has no stakes because nobody has to live with learning anything from their choices. And I hate that kind of like it's just why are we here? Right? If we could just wait, like, I love that they put a bunch of money into this final sequence and gave us a bunch of cinematic art and pixels flying around, fake things, throwing things at fake things and heads popping off. Like that was the dopamine level of excitement, but there was no weight to it ultimately. Like they just, it's fine. It's fine, but it's ultimately weightless.
Brian's in the chat room. He commented how this is a difference from the book. That in the book, they do just have a conversation, and there is no actual fight at all. Which, I mean, to a certain extent, is even more Stephenie Meyer's. Where we didn't mention Alice and Jasper. They bring another example of a vampire-human hybrid to the battle. They bring him with his aunt from Brazil, up to talk about how he isn't immortal. He has grown up. When he hit 7 is when he kind of was full grown, and that's the place he's been for 150 years now. And so they are okay with that, and they say, oh, okay, well, everything's good, and that's it. The vampire or the Volturi say, all right, you're all good, and walk away. So I mean, to that end, would you have preferred it to end like that, or would it have felt anticlimactic?
Oh, totally anticlimactic. Absolutely. No, and that's not a cinema choice, right? You can maybe get away with it in the book. If you're already a fan of the book, that making that kind of choice actually, I think, is probably in tone with the rest of the writing. Nobody brings an army dressed like Death Eaters to this snow and doesn't end up in a fight somehow, right? Like these guys had their fighting cloaks on, so we have to show them fight. And again, that's what I mean. Like it was fun to watch because you get a little dopamine push out of it, and there are some good physical gags and good moments of head-popping violence. And it's better than just let's talk it out in terms of third act resolution. And we get what's his name smiling. Like Aro's like cheeky smiles are amazing.
Oh, Michael Sheen is
absolutely. Sheen. He's just
when he steps out in front of the group and has that conversation like to his team about how, oh, it's okay, although she could pose danger, like that whole thing, like just he has so many looks through that whole moment. I'm just like, Michael Sheen, you are my hero. You make this franchise worth it because you are a pure delight to watch in this. Holy cow, is he great.
Yeah, no, he knew what movie he was in, and the whole time I was watching this, I was thinking, I can't wait for the award session. I hope Andy finds some sort of award for Michael Sheen that was best person ever in a movie ever, like because he was so fun to watch every time he was on screen.
Absolutely,
he is awesome.
Absolutely.
So. This movie does level up on the Quileutes, because there's so many vampires now in the area that now we don't just have a couple of werewolves. We have I think they said 16 ultimately on screen at one point.
When we're talking about lore, I mean, there's obviously all these additions to the vampire lore, how suddenly everybody has all these, they're all superheroes now.
Everybody's
it's like, this is getting ridiculous with the vampires. Like one is electricity. I know. It
Sandman.
Just got, which again is why I thought it was just so fun, because it was just so nonsensical. I was having fun with it. But anyway, we haven't really talked a lot about the werewolves at this point in the Quileute. And this is an addition to their lore that when there's a lot more danger in the area or whatever, you'll get more numbers of of people suddenly compelled, as they say in the film. They are just compelled to turn. Like, what? They're compelled? Like, really?
Yeah.
I thought it was like this weird genetic thing that just happened in a few people, but apparently they all have it. And it's just suddenly now, because of the overwhelming number of vampires, more of them are compelled to turn.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I sometimes am compelled to eat Twinkies, even though I shouldn't, and I'm able to restrain. But these guys are not, and that's okay. It's fine for the movie and the big fight. We need more wolves in the big fight. They're great. I like all the jumping and catching. Like, I love the handoffs where a vampire will throw a bad vampire into the air and the wolf will catch it and rip its head off. Like, that stuff is really satisfying for me. Like, it just, I love that. Because it's like fetch.
I love
fetch.
the feeding of Jane. When Alice catches Jane, Dakota Fanning's character, and like drags her up to, I'm assuming it was Sam, who comes up to her and she just sees the wolf approaching her. Like, this is the best. Like, this is just clearly they just were enjoying what they were doing with these people. So I had a great time with that.
It is a great time. There is like, I don't know that we can just have the conversation, which out at least noting that continuing our conversation from Twilight movies past, there are problematic interpretations of indigenous people and people of color in this movie. We totally get it. It's laughable, and so let's take this movie for what it is. It's a cartoon.
Yeah,
and
very much so.
It's made with a worldview that dated itself the moment it was released.
The fact that everybody who came up from Brazil, I mean, I understand that the two that they bring up are from whatever tribe that they got in the Amazon, and then the other two that Alice and Jasper come up are, I don't know, I thought they said they were from the same tribe, but maybe I'm misunderstanding what the tribes were. But anyway, they're all wearing like next to nothing in the snow.
Yeah.
Yeah, just and
well,
it's
they're
just
vampires
like
and they don't feel anything. They can get away with that because they don't feel anything. They're all cold anyway.
Anyway, they still could. It just lots of problems with that.
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit more about imprinting?
Sure, imprinting then. Right. So imprinting is, I guess, it's a thing that it is definitely a thing from the universe. It exists. Like babies imprint on parents. Apparently.
Yeah. Well, okay. And in this one, Jacob says that he doesn't really have a choice who he's imprinting.
Oh, God.
Like, what? I thought he specifically chose. And then as another example of why don't you actually use words and say things to Bella? Like when Bella was attacking him at the beginning, like he's not saying part of the reason that all of that happened is because people were coming to kill your child. And by imprinting, I saved her life. Like that never comes out of his mouth.
Is that what really happened?
Well, apparently not, because he doesn't have any choice.
He didn't have any choice. He just sees a thing and he's like,
that's what he says in this movie.
Yeah.
In the last movie, though, it didn't seem that way, did it? Like, it seemed like he specifically chose to imprint on Renesmee so that he could then protect her from Sam and the others who are coming to kill her. Like, that's how I read it when I watched the last film.
Oh, I didn't read it that way. So let's go back. Let's go back through several movies. So the first time we're introduced to the concept of imprinting when Bella's on the back of Jacob's motorcycle, right? I think that was our first conversation. He's talking about, he starts introducing this concept of imprinting.
Yeah.
And my read of it now, after he imprints on baby Nessie, is that he thought he was imprinting on Bella. Like he had a crush, but it wasn't really imprinting. And then he sees Renesmee and he's like, boom, that baby vampire is up in my life. And he realizes what imprinting really is because he didn't have a choice. It was like, woo, blue sky beam of imprinting. And that now he doesn't have a choice. He just is, he's a wolf man that is forever tied to the baby. I didn't get the fact that he had any agency in it at all, that he didn't understand it because he hadn't been through it, and that this is another allegory for, going puberty, one true love, whatever, that he's finally come of age to marry a baby.
I like your read of it because I didn't see it that way when I saw the last film. I thought, And again, it was just maybe me just completely misreading the film, but it seemed to me that when they were like all of the wolves were coming to surround the house, he came into the house and he looked at Renesmee and imprinted on her, because it seemed like there must be some form of agency, because you don't want to accidentally imprint on somebody, and it's not accidental, but you don't want to imprint on somebody who just has no interest in you. Like, that's the thing with imprinting randomly that just makes no sense to me. It's like, how do you, like, it's stupid. Like, why is that a thing that makes any sense whatsoever? If you're imprinting on somebody, it should be somebody you know, somebody who likes you, so that once you've imprinted, now you can actually have this relationship and you're going to be there and committed to them, as opposed to like randomly seeing somebody crossing the street, like, whoa, my God, I just imprinted on that stranger who's crossing the street to the grocery store. I've got to follow that person for the rest of my life.
God. No, you're absolutely right. But I think this is the problem and why the concept of imprinting doesn't hold. Because when I hear about imprinting, it's usually like baby ducks, right? It's like ducklings imprint on their mother so that they know where the hell their mother is at any given time. Because let's be honest, ducks kind of like, I don't know, this is probably speciesist, but ducks look alike a lot of times. They're like, ducks. And I can't tell a duck apart. Maybe imprinting is that sort of chemical, hormonal, emotional bond that ducks and ducklings have that's parent-child, caregiver and caretaker, right? Like, it is, those are the same thing. Isn't that a weird thing about English? Caregiver and caree. Anyway, so that's the imprinting. It's a protective thing. So I don't think there's any notion that, or there shouldn't be any notion that he's just going to imprint, like imprinting on somebody with a relationship. Like how is that we're now taking this parent-child metaphor and we're putting it toward couples as a descriptor of one true love. And that's where I think it kind of falls apart. And so it really falls apart because of the nature of the sort of coda of the movie, which is Jacob is imprinted on the baby, but the baby, thank God, it grows fast because eventually it grows into their marriage. Yeah. Oh my God. It's, it just doesn't, it's gross.
It's incredibly disturbing. I mean, yes, we already have Jacob. I mean, we already have Edward, who's 100 and something, marrying Bella. Yeah. But then you have Jacob, who's, I don't know, 20 something, or he's probably 18, probably close in age to Bella. And he imprints on this brand new baby who initially in the last one, I was like, okay, well, maybe it's more like as a protector, he's going to be like the godfather. I'm like, okay, he's the baby's godfather. I'm going to be around for your life and I'm going to always take care of you. Right. But no, he says to Edward, so can I start calling you dad now? I'm like, no.
God.
You just took that the wrong direction. What are you doing?
You can't. You can't ever do that. Oh my God.
I can't even believe that Stephenie Meyer wrote that. I was like horrified when that came out of his mouth.
It's exhausting. It's so exhausting. This whole bit is so rough.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that's everything we need to say about imprinting.
Like, have you read any essays that really celebrate the notion of imprinting as displayed in this movie? Like, has it become part of like the cultural gestalt of vampires?
Well, it'd be werewolves.
I haven't seen any vampires movies since, or werewolves. You're right, it's werewolves. I haven't seen any werewolves since.
Well, let's see. Joe Johnston didn't use it in The Wolfman when he made that. I don't remember Benicio del Toro or Anthony Hopkins imprinting on anybody, but maybe that would have improved that movie.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. No. Nobody should do that.
No, stop imprinting. Mother and child, it's fine. That's where we draw the line.
Well, anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
So, what else?
Is that the end? I mean, we've talked about the big final speech of what's his name. Oh, and then we have the end of the movie, which is so this is the final, they're in the field again. And she, now that she's a vampire, realizes that I guess her protective mind shield is something she's had all along, even as a human. And that's why Edward could not see her thoughts, feel her thoughts and see her feelings. all of the things. And now that she's a vampire, she's learned how to control it through epic mind battle that didn't happen. She is able to drop her mind shield so that he can actually see her thoughts.
I don't think she was dropping her mind shield. She was, the way that it seemed, she was downright projecting her memories of him into his head.
Oh, this was a memory injection.
That's what I thought, because he's like, do it again. And she's like, we've got plenty of time. So I thought, yeah, he just wanted another hit.
Do it again. Oh my God. This whole series is just ripe with weird codependence, and it's just awful. But when you say things like that, like inject me with your mind juice, do it again, it's like awful. It's just awful.
I know. It's strange days right here. I'm your magic man.
It is so strange. That's exactly right. Right. This is like the next movie that we see after this is like there's a talking refrigerator in this movie. Like, you know what I mean? Like, That's where we go. It's just the long road of addiction and maybe recovery, but maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe their heads pop off. And so we end in a field.
Typewriters talking out of their anuses.
I will say, of all of the movies, this one has the best opening and closing credits sequences. I was actually really into the credits. I thought they were really good. I liked the way they move things around and the CG of the leaves in the beginning. And at the end, they give you the character parade in black and white, which I thought was really fun.
I feel like Lord of the Rings really kicked something off when they're like, we're concluding the saga of this entire story. So we're going to have the little montage of faces through the entire series at the end of this movie. I liked that too. I like that in films when they celebrate the end of something in that way.
Totally. Absolutely.
I just remembered I had my finger up because I wanted to just call out one thing that really did bug me about the ending, the faux mental battle that we have.
Okay.
That entire thing should be from Michael Sheen's perspective, from Arrow's perspective, because he is the one who is seeing this through Alice's future vision. And now I can accept that he's seeing anything that's happening on the battlefield because it's the battlefield. He could be looking at it. Mm-hmm. But when we jump to the forest and we're now following Jacob running off with Renesmee, and there's that one vampire who's chasing after them, and they have to take them down for whatever reason. It was the most nonsensical dead end of a story that we had in that entire bit, because it's like, okay, and then Jacob beats the vampire and then they keep running. Why did we even need to do any of that? It was really dumb. But none of that could have been seen by Michael Sheen. And so having that included in this whole end, that was, I think, the one element of it that I thought was breaking it.
That was the one.
That was the thing.
Okay. Well, I'm really, really glad we figured that out.
I know.
I just to celebrate that final speech where the half vampire, half weirdly exploited person of color shows up and says, I'm a half vampire, like I can drink blood or eat chicken. Like, I thought I like his little speech. He's very stoic.
He is. And his aunt is just like, yeah, it's true.
Yeah. It can.
She's just
chicken all the time.
Yeah, so what? He's a good boy.
I know I'm an exploited person of color, and I don't care. I don't have any lines. Whatever. Just dress me up as a prop. I'm a prop.
Oh. Yeah. Hey, I want to go back to your comment on the opening and closing credits, because the opening credits, I weirdly noted this, and I wondered, of all things, if what you would think of this in particular, because they did an interesting thing where the screen was all red and the text came in as red and then like go white, and they were kind of doing that through the whole open, which I thought was cool. But did you notice the font change when the letters would go from red to white, and that they didn't line up anymore? Because I was like, it's kind of, I get it if they're keeping the same font and the letters are just changing colors, but they completely changed fonts. They changed they didn't line up anymore. And it kind of threw me. I'm like, it's weird that they chose to do it that way.
I'm really glad you noted that, because it's a really funny thing. It goes from, when they're red, it's a classic serif font.
Serif font, right.
And it goes to a super modern sans serif font.
Yes.
And it doesn't make sense to me it actually doesn't make sense to me because they did it for actors that are playing non-vampires. Like I actually kind of get it if you're doing a vampire story and you want to like typographically mark the passage of epics. It's kind of a fun way to do it, but you're right. They didn't line up appropriately. Really, what should have happened is they should have just taken all of the serifs and smoothed them out on the same typeface, like the same weighted typeface. That would have been better. Instead, they just went to I think an Avenir Next and just adjusted the kerning, and it doesn't work.
And it's not like the letters don't even line up over the top of the
exactly.
M suddenly is down where the S was or something. It's like. It's very, very odd. A very small point, but something I wanted to bring up.
Yeah. Okay.
But outside of that, technically, I thought the film, again, Bill Condon, I think, we haven't really talked about him as a director much. I mean, I thought he did a good job here. Do you like Bill Condon generally as a director?
I think so. I mean, has he done anything to me that really makes me not like him? No.
My first recollection of him, I didn't see Candyman Farewell to the Flesh. Gods and Monsters is the first thing that I really know him from, and I really enjoyed that. I thought he did a great job with that. And Kinsey, I missed Dreamgirls, but I heard he did a good job with that. And then other than some TV stuff, he did these two films. He did Tilda, The Fifth Estate, which got torn apart. He did Mr. Holmes, which I quite enjoyed. Beauty and the Beast, which, I think was good for what it was. And The Good Liar, which I missed, but I also heard good things about. So I mean,
great things about The Good Liar and Gods and Monsters. I mean, what a great time to celebrate Gods and Monsters with Brendan Fraser's performance in there now that The Whale is out and getting such good reviews. So I think it's great. And Mr. Holmes was a really interesting take on that lore. Beauty and the Beast. The question is not is that or is it not a good movie? I mean, it has some good things about like movies. It's controversial, whatever. I get it. The question is, what is Disney's strategy for making these live action remakes that are just generally not great? I don't love them anyway. So I don't know. Beauty and the Beast. I feel like he is a capable, strong filmmaker, and I thought Dreamgirls was probably at the top of my list.
Oh, okay. Well, I should check that one out then, huh?
Yeah.
I haven't seen it. So yeah, I like him. I think he fit into this. And as I said before, he seemed to get the campiness and seemed to go all in with this particular film.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Did you happen to notice who else was kind of consistent across the board on the franchise, crew-wise?
No, I didn't.
I mean, we talked about Carter Burwell being dropped for Howard Shore at one point.
But Carter Burwell back for this one and is great. Although we didn't note, once again, we have a piano-playing Edward Cullen now teaching Nessie the theme to the movie.
I laugh. I get every time that happens. It cracks me up. It's so stinking funny. Obviously, Melissa Rosenberg wrote all 5 adaptations, generally produced by the same group. Different DPs. Elliot Davis did the first film. Javier Aguirre-Sarob did the second and third, and Guillermo Navarro did 4 and 5. Edited all over the place, a whole bunch of different editors across the board. Yeah, so it's kind of funky that there's not a lot of consistency, but I think the fact that Carter Burwell's music generally stays consistent through it, except for when Howard Shore didn't seem to use any of the themes, I think that really helps tie things together strongly. I like that Bill Condon came back to him for it because, again, it just feels like the music of this franchise. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. I really, really like the music for and to your point, I mean, it feels like the music for the franchise. It has been, it was, I think, largely a mistake to move away from Burwell for the other sort of 2 movies in there.
Yeah, I didn't mind so much that Alexandre Desplat came in for the second because he at least continued Burwell's themes. Mm-hmm. I would like to see what Burwell did if he was on it for all 5, but I just don't know why Howard Shore seemed to just completely dismiss it.
Wildly out of place.
Yeah.
All
right. Well, I guess that's it. So we'll be right back. But first, our credits.
When I look at you, I see a little clearer. Through the years and never change.
The Next Reel is a production of True Story FM. Engineering by Andy Nelson. Music by Chris Mason, Oriel Novella, and Eli Catlin. Andy usually finds all the stats for the awards and numbers at the-numbers.com, boxofficemojo.com, imdb.com, and wikipedia.org. Find the show at truestory.fm, and if your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, please consider doing that for our show. Andy, I don't think there are any sequels.
Well, they are talking about some spin-offs. I mean, we already mentioned that, at least I think we did, that the 50 Shades of Grey is inspired by this franchise. So that we can all be thankful for came from this. But interestingly, they've been talking for a while about doing some sequels, but only if Stephenie Meyer wanted to do one. And then they started talking about spin-offs. And as of just a few weeks ago, like I think at the time of recording this, it would have been right before Thanksgiving, November 24th, they actually started talking about that they're working on a spin-off series focused on Rosalie.
What?
Yeah. What's up with that? Like,
I don't know.
I mean, I know we had her whole flashback in Eclipse, but like, does that warrant a whole story, like a whole TV series about her life as a vampire or something? Like, I just don't get why suddenly that's a character that we need a whole series from.
Well, to this point, as a parallel, I watched the first episode of Bumper in Berlin after our Pitch Perfect series. Yeah, it's not good. So I feel like I bring it up because this feels very similar to that. Like maybe you picked the wrong character. Like maybe, I don't know. Maybe it doesn't have the pull that you think it does.
At least it's not Kellen Lutz.
That would be the funniest.
By the way, did you notice how
actually Rami Malek, that we get a whole series on Rami Malek's character.
Did you notice how different Kellen Lutz and Peter Facinelli looked in this film? Like, both of them seemed like Kellen Lutz looked like he'd bulked up a lot from the fourth film to the fifth film.
Yeah.
And Peter Facinelli, just his face looked a little heavier. Like he looked a little more worn down. I'm like, oh, those two don't look quite like they like they came straight from the end of the last film.
That's funny.
All right.
Okay. So how to do at the in award season? Did Michael Sheen get that award that I really want him to have gotten?
Well, this film had 21 wins with 15 other nominations. Lot of love for this particular film, and you'll be happy to know that he did actually get some awards. At the Empire Cinema's Alternative Movie Awards, this film won for Best On-Screen Couple, Best On-Screen Kiss, Best Fight Scenes, Best Film Villain, there it is for RO, good old Michael Sheen, and Best Male Body, Pete. That's right, Jacob Black stripping down for Charlie. The Golden Raspberries, it won for Worst Picture. Pattinson was nominated for Worst Actor. Kristen Stewart won for Worst Actress for this and Snow White and the Huntsman. Taylor Lautner was nominated for Worst Supporting Actor. Ashley Greene was nominated for Worst Supporting Actress. Mackenzie Foy and Taylor Lautner won for Worst Screen Couple, beating out Pattinson and Stewart. And also won for Worst Prequel, Remake, Ripoff, or Sequel. Bill Condon won for Worst Director. The script was nominated for Worst Screenplay. It won for Worst Screen Ensemble. At the MTV Movie Awards, Taylor Lautner won for Best Shirtless Performance. And at the Teen Choice Awards, it swept the place, winning Choice Movie Romantic Actress for Stewart. Best Scene Stealer, Kellen Lutz. There it is. Taylor Lautner won for Sci-Fi Fantasy Actor. Kristen Stewart won for Sci-Fi Fantasy Actress. It won Best Sci-Fi Fantasy. Pattinson won for Best Romance Actor, and it won for Best Romance Film.
All right.
So much love.
So tell me why then. So much love. Tell me why Rosalie's getting attention for a spinoff, Andy. How'd it do at the box office?
Well, for Condon's second part of his conclusion to this franchise, he had a budget of $136.2 million or $152.5 million in today's dollars, the highest in the franchise. This movie opened November 16th, 2012, opposite Rise of the Guardians, Life of Pi, Red Dawn, Silver Linings Playbook, and Anna Karenina. It again took the number one spot and again only stayed in the top 10 for 5 weeks. Clearly a vampire's curse of some sort with this franchise. But like all the rest, it did well, earning $292.3 million domestically and $555.7 million internationally for a total gross of $949.8 million in today's dollars. That makes it the second highest grossing film in adjusted dollars behind New Moon, then Eclipse, Part 1, Breaking Dawn Part 1, and last but not least, the original Twilight. This one ended with an adjusted profit per finished minute of $6.9 million, the highest in the franchise. But with that high a budget, it's actually second to last when it comes to the profit to cost ratios.
Wow. Well, in hindsight, Andy, are you glad we talked about the Twilight movies?
You know, they are, it's a difficult franchise to look at because I think it's not, it has such bad representation for good relationships, healthy relationships. I would not watch this with my daughter. I think that she doesn't need to see this sort of, heartbreak and pining for somebody at such ridiculous levels in the way that she's being treated by these men and stuff. Like, I just don't like that. And I wouldn't choose to show this to her. And so I'm glad I saw it, though. I mean, I should say I'm glad I at least finished it. I had seen the first 3. I just never ended up jumping into the last 2. It's a kind of a terrible franchise, and but it's entertaining enough. And to that end, I was entertained. I'm really glad that we finished off with Bill Condon in this film because it ended for me on a high note. But a lot of me feels as I look at it now, I'm like, I just don't know if this is a good representation of cinema for people moving forward.
Yeah, I think we're in agreement. Good representation of cinema or relationships or, communication.
Yeah, right. So many things.
So many things that are struggling with. But I'll just say now, after watching them in such close proximity to one another, I think I'm glad I watched them. I'm glad I feel like I understand them. And I will say I'm not going to go back and read the books.
Not even for sleepy time, huh?
Well, and let me ask you this question. Did you think, because the way we recorded this and watched these movies, you had a sort of interstitial break of international travel. So we did 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1 right back to back, and then waited now 2 weeks or more to do this last one. Did you watch this just like last night, right, as we record this?
Correct. I did.
Okay. So do you think that impacted the way you watched the movie?
No.
Okay, I don't either. I actually watched it right away after we finished that show. I think last night, that night, I went back and watched it. So it's been now 2 weeks since I've watched it, and I think we largely agree where the movie struggles. So, all right, that's it.
That is it. Well, we will be right back for our ratings, but first, here's the trailer for next week's movie, W.S. Van Dyke's After the Thin Man, kicking off our return to the Thin Man series.
Well, you see, it's New Year's Eve, Aunt Catherine.
The old battle axe?
Shut up. Excuse me, Aunt Catherine. I was talking to the dog. This is Aunt Hattie.
How are you?
Don't mumble, young man. Don't mumble.
How are you?
She's dead.
You're telling me. You got a gun?
No.
What'd you do with it?
I never had one.
Miss Burns has a brother who has a gun.
If that little rat tries to hang anything on me, I'll...
You leave my brother out of this.
Take it easy. That's what they want. They want to get you at each other's throats. Just answer what you wanna, and don't let them get you.
I can't stand that shyster.
I was beginning to suspect that.
resolutions?
Not yet. Any complaints or suggestions?
Few. You don't scold, you don't nag, and you look far too pretty in the mornings.
All right, I'll remember. Must scold, must nag, mustn't be too pretty in the mornings.
Letterboxd. Andy, it's time for our reviews.
All right, let's do it.
What are you going to do?
Well, we talked about this. We teased it a little bit at the start. This is kind of possibly, I certainly had the most fun watching this of the entire series. Is it a 2-star and a heart like Twilight, or is it a little higher? I feel like there was enough to keep me going in this one. I'm going to give it 2.5 and a heart. That's where I'm going to go out on this one.
I think I don't even remember what my star rating was for Twilight. Was it 2?
Yes, we both were at 2 stars and a heart.
We were both at 2. I think, I think I'm okay leaving this one at 2. And a heart. God, that baby's bad.
Yeah, but the baby.
But hers. But no, you're right. So I'm going to go with 2 and a heart. That's what I'm going to do. It's going to be fine.
Right. Well, that will give us an average of 2.25 with a heart over on Letterboxd. So we'll round it up to 2.5. And that's where it will sit when we rank it there. Remember, you can get your pro or patron membership at Letterboxd with the discount code NEXTREEL, or just go to thenextreel.com/Letterboxd. It works for renewals as well. And speaking of memberships, we also have our own membership. If you would like to support us, you get early access to shows. You get a monthly member bonus episode. This month, it's going to be Jaws 3D as we jump into the Jaws franchise. And we do a number of other things. We do periodic flick chart re-rankings. We do retake episodes after each series. All sorts of bonus content that members get, plus extra channels in the Discord community. So if you are interested, you can learn more at thenextreel.com/membership. So what did you think about the Twilight Saga Breaking Dawn Part 2? We want to know. Hop into the Show Talk channel in Discord, where we will be talking about the movie this week.
When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Letterboxd giveth, Andrew.
As Letterboxd always doeth.
I think we split, right? We went high and low. Highsies, lowsies.
I think we did. Do
you want to go first? Mine's kind of long. Does that impact you at all?
Mine's kind of long, too.
Oh, okay. Then why don't you go first? We'll climb the ladder.
All right. I got a 0.5 star by Haley, who has this to say. I'm so close to giving this film 5 stars, and it's just, there's no punctuation. Periodic, all caps, though. So that's where I'm going with this. I'm so close to giving this film 5 stars. Honestly, it's so amazing. It's like everyone just went, F it. And this was the masterpiece they created. Seriously, I can't believe some of the stuff that goes down. The CGI baby, that page 13 sex scene that's literally just loads of dissolves and extreme close-ups. The amount of vampire beheadings, oh my effing God. Rami Malek and Lee Pace are in this movie. I can't believe it. That weird goth filter they put over every frame that makes everyone look so pale and blue. You named my daughter after the Loch Ness Monster? Charlie Swan not noticing that his granddaughter has grown 7 years in a couple of months. How is it that these movies have like 3,792,174 vampires in it, and not one of them is LGBT? Like, honestly, if Alice and Rosalie were a lesbian couple, a vampire couple, I would stand this film so hard. Bella and Edward snogging in a meadow more times than I can effing count. It was all just a dream cliche. That damn Christina Perri song that makes me so emo. Michael Sheen's laugh, I'm dying. Everyone giving Bella human lessons, even though she's only been a vampire for a day. Jacob literally falling in love with a child and then just being like, it's a wolf thing. OMFG, I really wish the franchise hadn't have ended, because honestly, this film is amazing. It is art.
And that's a 0.5 star?
And that's a 0.5 star.
Wow. Well, mine is exactly the opposite, and in every way, but ends on the same note. It's a 5 star from Ollie Pops, who says, I've thought about this movie a lot over the past few days. The CGI baby is horrifying. The dialogue is outrageous. The list of plot holes is endless, and the new characters introduced are completely two-dimensional. And to top it all off, the climactic battle that the entire series has built towards is actually in a dream. But I can't stop thinking about it. It's had such a visceral impact on me. These movies are literally unlike anything I have ever seen before. And the pure despair I felt watching Carlisle and Jasper, quote, die was the most raw emotion I felt from cinema in a long time. If these characters can evoke such feelings within me, then it proves that these are something more than just bad vampire movies. They are an experience. They are Twilight. I'm sure she meant it as a whisper, Ollie Pops.
What a perfect way to end this franchise, though.
They are Twilight, except for the 1 5-star review from Lucian, who says, in all caps, Elliot Cullen, Infinity War in his brain. Oh, that's awesome. All right. Thanks, Letterboxd. It is hard to believe we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
Oh, you're telling me. Producing this show week after week is so much fun, but it does require a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our Originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you, and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
The Originals page at thenextreel.com/originals links to the source material from all of our adapted film discussions. Purchasing through our links support the show at no extra cost to you.
In Season 12, the focus was big franchises and series. We covered both Paddington films, adapted from the beloved children's book character created by Michael Bond.
Oh, I love those films so much.
Hugh Grant is perfect.
For our Pitch Perfect series, the first film was adapted from Mickey Rapkin's nonfiction book about collegiate a cappella competitions.
It's like a short story of my life, literally. I lived college a cappella.
Sing it, brother.
I lived college a cappella.
I didn't mean literally.
You know who you're talking to, right? The Twilight Saga dominated the season with 5 films adapted from Stephenie Meyer's vampire romance novels, Twilight, New Moon, Eclipse, and the 2 Breaking Dawn parts.
Dominated with awkward romance and nonsense logic is more like it.
That too.
Another Thin Man brought us back to Dashiell Hammett's only Thin Man sequel based on other Hammett material, The Farewell Murder, that wasn't just based on the characters from the first film.
We talked about Trainspotting and its sequel, T2 Trainspotting, adapted from Irvine Welsh's novels.
I hate the sequel's name.
I do too.
And the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy adapted from J.R.R. Tolkien's epic fantasy series.
Love these.
Extended editions all the way, baby.
Plus, all the Mission Impossible films based on the 1960s TV series.
And we've still got at least one more to go.
Members got to hear us chat about The Hustler and The Color of Money, adapted from Walter Tevis's books.
Get all of these books and more at our Originals page, thenextreel.com/originals.
Start your next read from the movies we've covered at thenextreel.com/originals.